Hey, what's up, everybody? Another month is behind us in 2025. He's Scott Rickenbach. I'm Scott Spreitzer. We are looking at college football's early moves and best bets for the upcoming weekend of October 4th, 2025. And before we jump into all that, I wanted to let everybody know if you're not yet a member at DocSports.com, you just want to give it a trial run, click on that link below the video, get yourself set up for a free $60 account, which you can then use on any of our daily packages. That Scott, this Scott, anybody else over at DocSports.com. It is a cool way to give Doc Sports a trial run, a little bit different than most of the sites that are out there. Scott, before we jump into the line moves, last week the Sharps, basically of the games we talked about, went 3-3 on those early line moves. So last couple of weeks, if you jumped on board, you're 8-5, which isn't too bad. I'll take that any day of the week in any season of the year in just about any sport. But I wanted to explain a couple of things. First of all, these games that we're talking about, because some people jumped in last week, and we love the comments about, you missed this line move or you missed that line move. But those were Monday line moves, and we're talking about these on Sunday evenings. And so these line moves that we're talking about basically took place by 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night. That's the original, sharp money jumping in, no public money obviously getting thrown into that mix. And that's what we like to talk about. So we're talking about those initial Sunday sharp moves. And also, if you see these line moves that seem out of whack at a couple of big books, one that's international, one that's big here in Vegas, and you'll see like a 6-point line move. It's not actually an opening line, so to speak, where the value is, the limits are big and they move lines because of big, sharp action. Are they, Scott? It's more of it's a feeler line, as I like to call it.
That's right. Almost like a market maker line. Just put that number out there, take just a little bit of action on it, nothing big, and see how it goes from there. So you're right about those big book offshore, and also, of course, in Vegas as well, that has that type of system. Yep. And it's all part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a couple that we definitely use that we can trust, that are deep pocket, not afraid of taking deep pocket sharp bets on Sunday afternoons and evenings, and that's what we're using. So we got a handful of games to talk about for the upcoming weekend. Scott, let's kick it off with Coastal Carolina at Old Dominion. Folks, you can see it right there. Sunday night, Old Dominion laying 17.5. The opening line was right around 15.5, depending on where you shop. And Scott, boy, the Monarchs look legit. Their lone loss came against Indiana, and it wasn't embarrassing. 27 points they held the Hoosiers to in Bloomington. And then they outgained Vatech 90-plus yards and had last week off after, outgaining Vatech and beating them handily. I like this kid, Colton Joseph, the quarterback for Old Dominion. He's tough to defend. He can pick him up and put him down when he runs with it.
Yeah, I was going to talk about him here because he's, other than that loss to Indiana, which, like you said, Indiana's 5-0 and they hung in there in that game. He has a TD to INT ratio of 8-1. And this Coastal Carolina team is really a mess. They're off a win versus South Alabama, but the Jags are 1-4 this season, and the only other win was over an FCS school. And by the way, Coastal's only other win before this win over the Jaguars was also against an FCS program. Their 2 losses this season combined 86-7. So I agree with this line move. I think Old Dominion should be able to roll in this one.
Next up, we're going to talk about Kansas at Central Florida. UCF lost in Manhattan to Kansas State over the weekend. Kansas was in a tough one against Cincinnati and fell short against the Bearcats. That was in Lawrence. I'm not sure about this line move, and I got to jump into it a little bit more, Scott, because Kansas opened a 3-point road favorite. They're now laying 4. This is one I'm not sure about. I'm not sure that I agree with this move. It's one of those things where if this is where the line sits, I'm not on the game. But I got to jump in a little bit deeper and see why Kansas was bet up already on the road in Orlando.
Yeah, and I guess it's because I'm in the same boat, Scott, with this one. I think it's going to be one that I'm staying away from the side but the Jayhawks they're getting some early love, and I think it's because of the 3 wins that UCF has are against Jacksonville State, North Carolina AT&T, and then North Carolina. But the Tar Heels, of course, are really looking like a mess under Belichick. So. And UCF got exposed at Kansas State. So the thing here for me, though, is I can't trust this Kansas defense. I know they lost by just 11 at Missouri, but they were outgained 600-250 in that game. Granted, Missouri's a good team, but Kansas continues to give up a lot of yardage. I don't trust either defense here. I'll be honest. I'm going to probably be looking at the over in this one and giving consideration to that.
Not a bad idea. You mentioned Kansas and the yardage they've given up. Cincinnati and Mizzou gained or combined to gain over 1,000 yards and 79 points against this team. And you're right, man. Kansas can look top 20 one week and look like they're not even top 45 or 50 the next week. It's a
Yeah.
weird team, obviously. I wanted to talk about this because this is kind of an example of one of those bad openers, or again, feeler line openers, I guess would be a nicer way to put it than saying a bad opening line. But Iowa State at Cincinnati. And Cincinnati's laying 1.5 in this one. And there are a couple of big books out there. Again, one that's international, one that is local here in Southern Nevada. And they had Cincy as much as a 3-point dog on Sunday morning. I'm going to tell you what right now, folks, the money did move in on Cincinnati a bit at the books that we use to judge these, but it did not move 5 points from 3.5 to 1.5 based on any major sharp moves. So that's just an example, Scott. I don't know if you have anything on this or not, but it's just an example of, what we're talking about, a feeler line or finding out where the market's going to go by putting out that number they did. And it's not based off of tens of thousands of dollars coming in on Cincinnati.
Yeah, and this one's a tough one for me. Cincinnati's got the 2 wins, but that was sandwiched between a season opening 3-point loss to Nebraska and then a 3-point win versus Kansas over the weekend. So Iowa State's 5-0 and rolling, but I just don't. This one almost seems like a trap line to me, with Iowa State having this perfect record and the line around to pick them. But I don't know what to make of this one, Scott.
Yeah, my radar starts going up a little bit when I see a team that's played as well as Iowa State that just blasted a current opponent as a single-digit favorite, undefeated this far into the season, and all of a sudden they are an underdog to a team that's, tasted defeat before on the season. So it's something to keep an eye on, this Iowa State-Cincinnati game. And by the way, folks, we're going to have best bets coming up at the end of the show, as we always do. Real quick note on this one, Washington is on the road at Maryland. The Huskies came off that loss to Ohio State 24-6. They opened a 4.5-point favorite. They have been bet up to 5.5. Scott, the next game, I really want you to I want to get your thoughts on this one, Miami at Florida State, and where this line has gone. Of course, Miami's still undefeated, playing well. Florida State finally gets to overtime after falling down 14-0 to Virginia, makes the big comeback, took a lead at one point, and then loses in OT. That defense didn't look too hot last week, but they're getting the money right now. Opened 6, they're down to 5. Underdog getting money here, Scott.
Yeah, and was Florida State just looking ahead? I think, a lot of people are going to look at that Virginia loss as inexcusable, and I understand that. But again, it came in overtime on the road. Miami did beat Notre Dame and South Florida, but let's not forget Florida State beat Alabama, who's looking pretty strong right now. And I understand that the Hurricanes have the big rest edge here coming off a bye, and FSU is off this overtime loss, but at least it was a Friday game, so that helps a little bit with Florida State. And I think this Seminoles team has something to prove off that miserable season last year that they had. And they've got revenge also from an embarrassing loss at Miami last year as well. I'm looking at the dog here plus the points as well in this one. I'm going to be giving consideration to that.
I think Barry Odom will turn this Purdue program around if he's there for a while, and he got a sweet contract to leave UNLV to go there, but he's been good. He was fine at Missouri. He was great at UNLV, turning around a moribund, almost let's fold the tent program out here in the desert in Las Vegas and putting them at the top of the Mountain West, or at least challenging for the top of the Mountain West and getting them to bowl games the last couple of years. Now he's in West Lafayette. I actually agree with this line move. You look at what happened here, and Purdue opened up about a 10-point dog. They're down to 8.5 at a lot of books. Couple of 9s out there. The Illini, of course, bounced back from their ugly loss to Indiana. They had the late drive against USC, but that was a gut check win for Illinois to come back and win that game after losing the week before, the manner that they did. Scott, Vanderbilt's at Alabama, an interesting game here. Bama opened 12.5. It's been knocked down to 10.5 as the early sharp action has come in on the Commodores.
Yeah, this is a lot of points here, considering it's a tough scheduling spot for the Crimson Tide. Coming off that was a hard-fought win over Georgia. And Vandy, they pulled away from Utah State rather easily, so I don't think they didn't have to expend nearly the amount of energy that Alabama did in beating a very strong Georgia team, of course. So this is generous points here to be giving to a team that's 5-0 this season. I know Alabama's faced a tougher schedule. I understand the move toward Vandy here, though. They're playing with a lot of confidence, and Alabama off such a tough game with Georgia. So I would be looking at the big points here as well.
Yeah, Vandy beat them by outright as a 23-point dog last year. They're not going to be scared of playing at Alabama. And man, Diego Pavia, he's just incredible right now for Vandy, and they're putting up a lot of points with that kid behind the center. Also in the SEC, we got Miss State at Texas A&M, and A&M is getting the action on Sunday night. They went from a 12-point opening line to a 14-point favorite. Tough overtime loss for Miss State, Scott, last weekend. They end up going to overtime with Tennessee, lose the game by 7, covered the number. That was one of those early moves last Sunday night. Came in on Miss State. The sharp money was correct. It looks like sharp money doubts the Bulldogs have enough to recover from that tough loss, though. And I agree with this opening line, this move.
Yeah, for me, it's a tough one. Mississippi State, of course, off the OT loss, and I think that's helping to possibly give the Bulldogs some value here. The Aggies, I know they're winning, but they're undefeated, and they've had such an easy schedule in terms of being at home. Granted, they did have the win at Notre Dame, but that was a very tight, fortunate win. And I still think this Bulldogs team, they have something to prove. They had such an ugly season last year, and the Aggies did beat them by double digits in Starksville last year. So again, I realize the Aggies dominated the stats against Auburn this past weekend and could have won by much more, but I still like the points here with Mississippi State. I think it's a little bit much. I mean, if it's at 14 and above, I'm leaning toward the Bulldogs in this one.
Next up, and I wanted to throw this in there real quick because it was one of the bigger moves in the afternoon on Sunday. Texas State opening a 10-point favorite at Arkansas State, and that line moving from 10 all the way up to 12.5 as we speak late Sunday night. And I happen to agree with this line move. I thought Texas State was going to open around where it sits right now, 12.5, and it only opened 10. So agree with that line move there. I'm going to get to my best bet in just a second. It's going to be interesting to you because we just talked about it, and I think we're going to be opposing each other on that particular play. But what's your best bet before we jump into it, Scott?
I'm looking at the Penn State-UCLA matchup, and I know that the Nittany Lions, this is a team I follow closely. My roots, Rickenbach family's from Pennsylvania, so I'm all about Pennsylvania sports. And the thing here with Penn State, they continue under Franklin. They cannot win the big games. They just can't do it. They lost in overtime to Oregon, of course, but they always tend to blast these weaker or struggling teams. And UCLA is now 0-4 this season. They're scoring just 14 points per game. And remember that Penn State, before the loss to Oregon, they won their first 3 games by an average score of 45-6. So I know they're on the road for the first time, but there's a big difference between these two programs. And I think Penn State's going to take out a lot of frustration here and win this one by 30 plus.
Well, I'm going to go to, if I can get the darn thing right here, I'm going to go to my best bet for this week. And it's going to be a game we just talked about. And obviously I could tell a little bit that we're going to be disagreeing on this one. It is a best bet early for me, an early value best bet for the show. And I did jump on this right out of the blocks on Sunday. I got it a little bit later than the first move, but I still got a better number than it sits right now. And I do like Texas A&M, even at 14 here, over Mississippi State. The Aggies can put points on the board. Just ask Notre Dame. But then we also saw them win with defense. I mean, they beat Auburn 16-10, came up short against the spread, but held Auburn to 9 first downs, 177 yards, and 3.1 yards per play. And A&M slammed the door on the Auburn ground game, and then Arnold couldn't do much to get on track through the air because of that. They harassed him left and right. 5 sacks for the Aggies against Auburn. They also were able to rush him and hurry up a couple of his throws when he dropped back. So I think it's a tough spot for Miss State off that loss last week to Tennessee. And this, again, was the first bet I made on Sunday. It's up to 14. I got it at 12.5, so a little bit after it opened. But bottom line is we're going to try to make it 3 straight early value best bets in a row the last 3 weeks. We had Ohio State last week, and we'll go with Texas A&M here minus the points. So, but always good stuff, Scott, and everybody. Again, you can get that $60 free account at DocSports.com. Click on that link right below the video, get yourself set up, and then you can use it on any of our daily packages over at Doc Sports. And like I always say, it's just a great way to give DocSports.com a trial run. He's Scott Rickenbach. Check out his videos and my videos all week long, individual games, top 5 countdowns, all that kind of good stuff. And of course, you can check out all of our work on our individual handicappers homepages over at DocSports.com. For Rickenbach, I'm Scott Spreitzer. We're Scott and Scott. Thanks for watching, everybody. Continue those comments, bringing them in. We will get to them throughout the week. Might not be right away, but be patient. We will get to them. We do appreciate it. Have a great one, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.